What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next, we are going to be talking about 5 books that have been correcting significantly. They all had sales recently on the Comic Link auction, so we're going to talk about those sales, how those books performed, and if you should maybe consider buying them now or keep avoiding. Stay tuned. All right. So before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So if you're not aware, there has been a big Comic Link auction going on right now. There have been some cool big books. I've posted some shorts about some of those sales that have happened. And I've often been talking about some of the bigger sales, the more impressive sales, but there have also been some sales that have been pretty weak. And for books that have been trending down. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about a few of these books and if it's time to buy them or if you want to keep avoiding them. So the first book that we're going to be talking about here is Avengers #8. This is the first appearance of Kang, and this book has just been on a downward spiral. It got super hot during the comic boom. This was a book that was perfectly set to spike with the comic boom, with Kang's first on-screen appearance in Loki, which was amazing. Got everybody super hyped about the character, and now we don't even know if we're going to be seeing this character again. In this Comic Link auction, there were 3 copies so far that have sold. There was an 8.0 that went for $1,327. There was a 6.5 that went for $600. And then there was a 5.5 that has one of these CVA stickers, meaning that it's supposed to look good for the grade, that kind of thing, that went for $518. So let's check out how these books performed, if we should start getting into them or if you should maybe keep avoiding. So I'm here on GPA. We've got Avengers #8. First, let's check out that 8.0. Man, you see this last sale? $1,700 in January of 2024. Let's go back here. This one sold for $1,327, way below that last sale in January. So let's see how that is overall. I mean, this was a book that you can see here had been pretty consistent for quite a few months. I mean, it had a $1,775 sale a year ago, almost in April of 2023, had a $1,700 sale in January, but now it just has the sale down into the 1300s. Big drop. Now, if you're not aware, the Comic Link sales don't get pulled into GPA, so it will not be on here, but we can still look at this data and see how these books performed. And you can see at $1,327, it hasn't sold that low since 2020. But if we go back to before we had all the hype with Kang, this book was going for around $300 to $400. Then when the Kang news started to break, it started spiking, and some spikes in the book. And then it got way up as high as $6,000 for an 8.0. And so, yeah, it might seem tempting at $1,327 that that's a good pickup for this book. I personally, I'd still be avoiding it. I think this is a book and a character that I would stay away from until it got all the way back to these like 2017, 2018 prices. An 8.0 down around $500-$600. And if it doesn't get there, fine. I'd be fine not owning that book. But I would stay away from this book until it gets back down to that type of price point. I think there's just too much, going on with that character and how people aren't liking now how the character was portrayed in the MCU, and we don't even know what's going to be done with that character moving forward. Now, let's take a look at a 6.5 that went for $600. So if we go to the 6.5, we can see, man, again, just February of 2024, sale was $820. However, it had a few lower sales. It had been as low as $605 in 2023. $690 in 2024, but still at $600, this is the lowest sale again since 2020. And again, a book that I would just be avoiding. I mean, I don't think that I would touch this book in this grade either. Now, the last grade that we've got here is this 5.5 that went for $518. That one actually performed pretty well. We can see that its last sale was $552. We had a 5.0 for $516. It probably had something to do with those CVA stick or the CVA sticker. People do seem to pay more for those, but again, I mean, it still seems like it's on a downtrend. And I wouldn't even, like I said with the other grades, I wouldn't even trust this floor that it seems like it had built between around 2018 to 2020, when people knew that Kang was going to be one of the big characters in the MCU. I would avoid this book. So Avengers #8, even at these prices being well below recent sales, I still wouldn't have bought them, and I would still be avoiding this comic. All right, now let's check out the next one. Next one here, sticking with Avengers. We got Avengers #48, first appearance of the new Black Knight, or Dane Whitman, Jon Snow from from Game of Thrones. And I mean, seeing these prices, just knowing where this book had sold is wild. This was a 9.0, went for $666. Let's go to Avengers #48 and let's check out the pricing for this book and a 9.0. See how this one did. So we have a 9.0 here. Last sale, $875. So this 9.0 for 666, another big drop for this one. However, we can see this wasn't actually the low. In 2023, it had sold as low as 477. There were a couple other sales below this one as well, but it was the low sale here for 2024, well below anything in 2022, below anything in 2021. And you have to go back again to 2020 before you really start to see these prices. Now, this is a book that just almost no demand for this book prior to this character being rumored to be part of the MCU. And he did make his appearance in the Eternals. That did not help him. The Eternals was not a very popular movie, and we didn't see him as the Black Knight or anything. There was a little teaser at the end, that kind of thing. But I mean, this is a book that before he was even part of the MCU, a 9.0, you can see, was a $100 book. I mean, you would even have opportunities to get it below $100 for a 9.0. Now, this is one of those books that I don't think it's going back to that type of pricing. I think people will probably give this character a bit of a chance, but I still would be avoiding it. I mean, I don't think anybody's real happy with what's going on in the MCU right now. And this is definitely one of those books that is driven by the MCU. I mean, the prices here show that. I mean, there are some books that are going to do well, stay strong, stay keys, regardless of what goes on in the movies. There are other books that need the movies and need them to be good, and they are not good right now. And this is just one of those books that I think will keep tanking. So even at a price that's down around the 2020 prices, I would keep avoiding it. I would not be picking up this book right now. Now let's check out an 8.0 that went for $275. So there was an 8.0 here, went for $275. Last sale was $320. So again, low performer there. There were some sales in 2023, still lower, $225. But this one, you actually have to go all the way back to 2019 before you really start seeing those prices again. Again, a book that could easily be gotten under $100 before this character was part of the MCU. So 8.0, still definitely a book that I would be avoiding. Last one here that sold in this auction was a 7.5 for $175. So let's take a look at the 7.5. Last sale, $237. So again, $60 difference might not seem like a lot, but that's like 25% below this last sale. So that is significant in terms of percentage. And if we look at the sales here, it hasn't had a $175 sale since 2018. Every year, I mean, 2019, 20, 21, all these years, this book was over that price. Now, part of it probably is that you can tell this book did not have that much value prior to that. So it was only having one or two sales. And so there probably weren't many graded in this grade range. But then once the values of the book spiked, you can see a peak sale of $1,250. People were getting all kinds of grades of this book graded. And so that's why you're starting to see a lot more sales. There's just a lot more graded copies out there. But again, at $175, that's probably not too bad. I would say like $175 for this one at a 7.5. Of all of these three, that one, I feel like your risk is pretty low. Like at $175, I'd say decent buy. The other two, the 275 for the 8.0 and the 666 for the 9.0, I'd be avoiding. But I think that, the 175 for the 7.5, pretty good buy. All right, now on to the next one. Only one copy of this book sold in in this Comic Link auction. This is Captain America number 117, the 7-0 white pages, first appearance of the Falcon. And so this is the character that is becoming the new Captain America in the movies. And my opinion in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the show, I did not like how that character was depicted. I don't think he's a very strong actor. I don't think he's the type of actor that can carry a franchise like this. And so I haven't had a lot of hope for this book regardless, but this was a 7-0 that went for $300. Let's take a look and see how this performed compared to other recent sales. And man, you look, it's just a sea of red, just a sea of red. There's this one, for whatever reason in a 7-0 here, it was jumping up, but everything else, just sea of red. Last sale, $375. So this sale was still $75, or again, almost 25% lower than this last sale. Now let's take a look at other sales. There was a $275 in 2023. So this wasn't the low for the last 4 years, but you have to, again, go all the way back to 2020 to get to those prices. And this is a book, though, that is still a key. I mean, this character has been part of the MCU for a while, but he's been more of a supporting role character. And I think people really thought that, again, during the comic boom, people thought this was going to be, the next big character. I mean, you see this huge spike. I mean, look at this. This was a book that was going for $300 leading up into it, peaked at $1,225. I mean, just crazy. I mean, that's just crazy. And it's still been trending down. This is one where if it got back to this baseline, I'd feel relatively comfortable with it. That's around, it's looking like around $300 for this baseline here. And that was leading up into Endgame. So I think at $300, which is what this one went for, I think that's a pretty safe buy. There could be some fluctuations that go a little below that for sure. But I think $300, 7-0, decent buy. But these other prices, I mean, these other prices here, $375, $499, $390, $450. Man, $499. Where was that? That was at Hakes. Wow. Yeah. No way. No way I would be paying those prices. At around $300, I think you're relatively safe. You're okay. Much above that, I'd be avoiding it. All right. So that was the only one for Captain America 117. Now, my punching bag book for the last couple of years has been Ultimate Fallout 4, the Djurjevic variant. This is the book that I have been talking about a lot, that I wouldn't be buying this book. I think that the spikes that this book had, I mean, this book went up like 2,000%. I mean, this book was crazy. It was below a $2,000 book prior to that boom in prices, and got up over $40,000. I mean, that's the type of thing that you should just go, all right, like that, we got to avoid that. And that's been my stance, and that is still my stance at this price. So we had a 9.8 that sold for $12,751. So let's go check that one out. So we got Ultimate Fallout number 4. And then this is of course, this is the variant edition. So it is more expensive. I think it's a 1 in 25. And so if we look at the variant edition, you can see the last public sale was $15,000. The low sale that we had, there was this eBay sale for $9,500. I think it was a best offer. I think that's how that one worked. Like somebody had it listed and someone did a best offer. I don't think it was an auction, but I don't remember for sure. Had a peak sale, you can see here, $43,200. Now, I have made videos directly about this book that I've been saying I would avoid it. I think that it could go down as low as like $5,000. Now, this was one of the lowest sales that we've had in a while, especially on one of the major auction platforms, the major comic auction platforms like Heritage, Comic Link, Comic Connect, that kind of thing. And so it is still, in my opinion, trending down. I would still avoid this book. And here's what I was talking about. 2019, this book had a low sale of $1,881. Even in 2020, low sale of $2,500. And you can see these peak sales in here, $30,000 to $40,000. Just those types of jumps should always scare you. They should always be something that you just see that and go, I should not be buying into this now. Let's just wait and see what happens. Now, do I think it's going to go all the way back to $2,000? No. I think there are so many people out there interested in Miles Morales, and this is that 1 in 25 variant that plenty of people would be happy to buy this book at around 5 grand. I've had a lot of people say that they would buy it up to 10, 9 or 10, and maybe we'll see. Maybe that's ultimately where the bottom is on that book, but I personally would stay away from it until at least 5,000. It's still way too high. I cannot see this book holding that kind of price. And it's still generally trending down. It doesn't sell all that often. And I think people are kind of afraid to sell it right now because there's a lot of potential for loss, but I'd be avoiding it. So 12,751, still trending down in my opinion. Low sale for this year. Let's see, last year, like I said, there was that 9,500, but it was the next lowest sale. So there was a 12,860, but this sale here at 12,751 is lower. Then if we go to 2022, no sales lower. 2021, there was one sale here at 12,297 and one at 12,700. So it's getting down around some of those lows from 2021. But yep, book I'd still be avoiding. Now, there were two 9.6s. I'm not going to talk about the signature series here, but let's talk about the unsigned copy. There's a 9.6 that went for $3,375. So let's take a look at the 9.6 variants. So last sale, 3,800. This was actually the low that we've seen going all the way back to 2020. So $3,375. You can see that there. Going back to 2020, you had a $4,500 sale. That's when it started to spike, but was as low as $675. I mean, look at that here. I mean, going back before these booms in price, this was a $600 to $800-ish book in a 9.6, peaked at $12,000. Again, that's that 20x. 20x is what we were seeing there. So this is another one of those books that I would probably avoid this book until at least somewhere around like 1,500. I mean, again, it might not reach that, but I would be totally fine not owning it and not taking that risk. That's what I'm looking at with these books. What is the risk that I would be taking if I bought this book, that it continues to drop? And at these type of prices, I think the risk is still too high. And so, yeah, it went for 3,375. That is the low for the last 4 years, but it still, to me, was too much. And I wouldn't have bought it, and I would stay away from it, like I said, until maybe around $1,500. Now, let's talk about the last book here. This is actually one of my favorite covers from the Silver Age. I love this book. This is X-Men #4. There are actually 2 copies that are still coming up for sale. This Comic Link auction is still going. 2 copies are still coming up for sale, but they did have one monster book that has already sold. A 9.4 sold for $15,250. Let's take a look at that one. So this is a major multi-key, but the big thing that it's really known for is the first appearance of Scarlet Witch. That's what I think has really hyped it up. It's also first Quicksilver, first Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but Scarlet Witch was a super hot character during the comic boom. We had WandaVision, we had where she was the main character or the main villain in the Doctor Strange movie. And so she was a big character during this time period. And so this book did really spike. Now, a 9.4, you're not going to have sales very often. That is a rare book in grade. I mean, look at this. Some years you don't ever have even a sale, like no sales in 2022, none in 2021, none between 2013 and 2019. But there's actually one in late 2023. It's weird seeing this book pop up for sale again. But this one sold for $15,250. Last sale, $15,669. So this is a much tougher book to judge if this was a reasonable price or not, like a good price or not. Because really the last sale that we have before the comic boom went for $19,600. I mean, actually a huge sale. The record was prior to the comic boom. Then going back 6 years, it was going for $6,000. But this is when we had Endgame. I mean, she was a major character as well in Endgame. And so that could have been what drove that. But 15,000, like off the bat, like looking at it like this, doesn't seem that bad. I mean, I could see it maybe going a little lower. I could see it maybe going down around 13 to 14, but in reality, like 15,000 doesn't seem that bad. But let's take a look at some other grades because we've got these two other copies that are coming up for sale. We've got a 7.0 and we've got a 5.5. So if we take a look at a 7.0, just get an idea where this book is compared to where it used to be. And again, we can look at that comic boom. I mean, it's crazy. Prior to that, 7.0 was going around $1,400, 13 to 1,400, spiked to 5,000. Oh no, 6,600. So 2021 high was 6,600. 2022 high was 5,760. So this book went up 4x, somewhere around there, 5x in that range. And it has been just gradually trending down since. And if we look at where it was prior to the comic boom, that $1,300 to $1,500, right now going for $2,880. This one currently at $2,100. This is the type of book that it probably will gradually trend up over time. So maybe you could say it's a $1,600, $1,700 book right now, but I'd be avoiding it above that. And so this $2,880 seems high to me. All the sales from 2023, 2022, all that seems high. I wouldn't be paying even the price that it's sitting at right now at $2,100. I think that there is still a lot of risk that that book could drop from there. Now the 5.5 sitting at 1,028. Let's check that one out. So we got a 5.5. Its last sale last year was 2,223. You can tell that that's already very high because we had a 6.0 that went for 1,800. So let's take a look at the 5.5 here and see where maybe this one should go. And prior to the comic boom, this book was around an $800 to $1,000 book. So I would say maybe around $1,200 today, somewhere in that range, maybe $1,300. And right now, this one is sitting at 1,028. So if it didn't get any more bids, if this is where this book sold, I'd say probably a pretty good buy. If it gets too many more bids after this, if it gets up into the $1,500, $1,700, $1,800 range, I think that's a little too much for this book at this point, and that there's still some pretty significant downside risk for it. But super cool book. I mean, the 9.4. Let's just take a close look at that one. You never see this type of book in a 9.4. I mean, you can see it's got a little bit of wear up here in the blue, but let's see if I can zoom in on it anymore. There we go. It's got a little wear up in the blue here. Let's go down the spine. I mean, spine looks really nice, and it should. I mean, it's a 9.4, right? It's got maybe a little softness down in that corner. Right edge looks pretty nice, and maybe a little softness in this corner. I mean, oh, and it looks like maybe a little something right up here. This is a good looking book. I mean, this is a solid looking 9.4. You don't think you can complain too much about this one. And one of the reasons I like watching these auctions, I mean, it's cool having the opportunity to see some of these crazy high grade books come up for sale. Because, I mean, I don't even know how many 9.4s are out there. Let's check out the census. I mean, there are 29 9.4s. Actually, that's more than I would have expected. That's actually quite a few 9.4s, 9 9.6s, 2 9.8s. I don't know when the last time a 9.8 has sold. 9.8 hasn't sold for 12 years, and it sold for 26,290. I'm sure it would go for way more now. I wouldn't be shocked if it broke $100,000. But yeah, super cool book. Still pretty rare. I mean, 29, there's 2,993 universals. So this is still inside the top 2%. So it's still a pretty rare book, pretty incredible book. But yeah, always cool to see those come up for sale. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, got some useful information out of it. If you've been looking at any of these books, Avengers 8, Avengers 48, Cap 117, Ultimate Fallout 4, X-Men #4, hopefully this helped with your buying decisions, maybe what types of prices you might want to consider paying. If it did, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, all that kind of stuff. I got more videos over here. If you'd like to watch some of my other videos, subscription button is right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.